So, because they just naturally seem to be grouped together, and they actually are actually grouped together because they were released one right after the other, but also because they, by and large, have the same sort of feel to them, sort of vibe. I've always considered this to be the middle album of the Rolling Stones trilogy. I think a lot of Rolling Stones fans probably agree with that. But so you had Some Girls in 1978, then you get this Emotional Rescue in 1980, and then Tattoo You comes out in 81. So I think it was 81. But anyway, I also remember my friends and I really excited about this, really looking forward to it coming out. We knew it was coming out in the summer of 80. 1980 was just such a great year musically and for a lot of other reasons. I was 16, turned 17 later that year, and in high school and all. It was just a great time to be alive. So we were really looking forward to this album. Came out on June 20th of 80. Got to number one in the United States and in England. A lot of the, or at least several of the songs here, like Some Girls, are kind of the stripped back version of the Stones, just the basic band playing. But you do have Nicky Hopkins here and there, and you do have horns on several of the songs too. So you got session musicians playing sax and other horns. But kind of it's quite a bit of variety on this album, but most of the stuff is pretty straightforward. So they recorded a bunch of songs for this, more than they had room for on the album. So some of the songs would end up landing on Tattoo You a year from when this was released. And I also remember reading somewhere, I think Trouser Press or Cream, I can't remember, that they could have had this done in they had this done in time that they could have released it in late '79, but they held off until 1980 because it was important to them to have new year, new decade, say that they had albums out in 3 decades. So they held out until the summer of 80, and I think that was probably a wise choice because it works pretty good as a summer album in a lot of ways. But I remember us thinking and hoping, wanting this to be Some Girls Part 2, because Some Girls was a huge hit, a great album on top of being a huge hit, an album that made the Stones relevant again to the general public in a way that they hadn't been for a few years before that. Also, the first, even though I knew about the band way before and all, but I had really gotten into them right pretty soon before that was released. So Some Girls was the first Rolling Stones album that I got to experience and enjoy in real time, and that was really cool. So like I said, we were looking forward to this, hoping we were going to get part 2 of Some Girls. This isn't exactly that, but it's a bit of a lesser album, but it's still a pretty good album. But I do remember at the time, and I like this even when it came out. There were several songs on here I liked, but there were quite a few songs that myself and my buddy John, who huge Rolling Stones fan that I grew up with next door to, and there were several songs on here that had us sort of going, well, not really sure what to make of it. My opinion of the album in the years since then has improved and increased. I still don't think this is on par with Some Girls, but I like the album, even though I liked it from the get-go to some degree, but I like the album more now than I did back then. And I think one thing that plays into that is that Some Girls, a lot of the songs on there have just been played over and over and played to death by the radio in the decades since it was released. This album got a lot of airplay when it came out, at least a couple of the songs did. But in the years since, you don't really hear the songs from this album, or at least I haven't heard them on the radio anywhere near as much as you're going to hear Beast of Burden or Miss You or things like that. So it's still kind of fresh, where Some Girls does suffer a little bit from overplay, overexposure. Yeah, so cover is it's okay. I think it's not a bad cover. I kind of like it, but it's not great, but it's not terrible. You've got these pictures of the band in this I don't know, thermal heat sensitive imaging photography, which I guess was probably pretty cutting edge technology at the time back in 1980. I don't that I was really paying attention, I guess, but the album came with a wraparound poster, which I lost long time ago, that you folded out, and it was a pretty big poster, but it was just more pictures of this thermal imaging type shots of their mugs there, the Rolling Stones. So it wasn't the most exciting poster, but it was nice to have. Yeah, so let's see, get on into the songs. The first song on side one is called Dance Part 1, which is notable because it's the first song that first Jagger Richards song that credits someone else, which is Ron Wood finally gets a credit. He came up with the riff for the song, just playing around in the studio, goofing around in the studio, and Jagger heard it, liked the riff, and jumped on it, and pretty much wrote the rest of the song. Kind of doubt that Keith had too much to do with this song, because this just doesn't sound like a Keith type of song to me, but I could be wrong. Anyway, it's Mick in his New York disco dance mood that you saw all over Some Girls. So that's kind of carrying over here. Get up, get out, get into something new. Maybe that's a reference to going into a new decade. Maybe not, but could be. Anyway, I like this song. Catchy as all get out. Great riff. It's just a cool summer groove of a song. And as far as their disco and dance songs, this one doesn't get a whole lot of attention or notice. Kind of overlooked, but I think it's a good one. I'm going to give it an 8. It's a good album opener. It's not their best album opener by a long shot. They did a lot better on previous albums, but it's a pretty solid, good opener to get into this album, and it sort of fits the mood and the feel of the overall album too. So it's a good opener introduction song for this particular album. So that gets an 8. Next song is Summer Romance. It's sort of a Rolling Stones, like they did on Some Girls, trying to do a little hard rock, punk rock feel song with a little bit of indecorous lyrics and trying to be bad boys a little forced in that department at this state of the game, but almost kind of reminds me of a snotty younger John Cougar Mellencamp for some reason, even though it really doesn't sound like one of his songs. It's a nice song. The guitars are all right. It's a throwaway. I'm going to give Summer Romance a 6. There's not really too much to say about that. Song 3 is Send It To Me. This is another catchy, bouncy song with a reggae beat. Mick's wanting a mail-order bride, and she can be Romanian, Bulgarian, Albanian, alien. He doesn't care. He just wants a bride. It's silly. It's a fun song. It's one of my favorites on the album. This doesn't add up to much, but it's just a good time, fun song. So Send It To Me, I'm going to give a 9 to. And what else we got on this album here? Turn the page. So now we go to number 4. Fourth song is Let Me Go. First rocker on the album, really. I guess Send It To Me is slightly a rocker, but more of a reggae, bouncy song. So Let Me Go, first rocker. Not quite a classic Status Stones rocker, but it's still a really swell song, and it's another song that doesn't really add up to much, but it's a fun song again. So I'm going to give Let Me Go a 9 because I always enjoy it. And that's the thing about this album. Well, you will get some stuff on Tattoo You, so I'm not going to say this is the last time, but a lot of the songs on this album aren't exactly filler, aren't exactly filler, but overall this album is good, but pretty lightweight. There's no, or very few, well, there's really no classic masterpieces on this album, even though there's some very, very good songs. In my opinion, there's not anyway, which I think there were on Some Girls, and I think there were on all the Rolling Stones albums before Some Girls, with possible exception of Black and Blue. And from this point forward, with the exception of some stuff on Tattoo You, we'll get to that on the next review, I think they kind of get a little more lightweight. Not necessarily that there aren't good songs, but not really as important anymore as they once were, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But anyway, Let Me Go. It's a fun song, good rocker. It gets a 9. Song number 5 ends side 1. It's called Indian Girl. It's a ballad with little touches of mariachi and Spanish music. Jagger's sort of trying, I guess, at social comment, but it rings sort of hollow or false. It's not. I don't think that he doesn't mean what he's trying to say there, but it just another song that doesn't add up to much. I'm gonna give it a 6. I would give it a 5, but the Spanish touches of music are nice and a little bit interesting, make it a better song than it really is. If it didn't have those, I would have given it a 5. It's when you listen to the album, it comes on and you're like, oh yeah, this is a nice little song, but it's not a song that I would ever, hey, I need to hear Indian Girl. I'm really in the mood to hear Indian Girl. It's not a song I really ever think about unless I'm playing the album and it comes up, to be honest. But I'm gonna give Indian Girl a 6, and so that ends side 1. First song on side 2 is Where the Boys Go. This is a fun one too, kind of silly, and actually another one might be another one of my favorites on the album. But it's snotty, grooving rocker, just got the somewhat raunchy and ribald lyrics. With at the end part, Keith and Ronnie, I'm guessing that's Keith and Ronnie that are doing the falsetto vocals and singing like girls. That always is just a huge laugh, and I like that part. So Where the Boys Go is a goofy, fun song. I always enjoy that, and I'm going to give that one a 9. Second song, it's Down in the Hole. This is kind of a drunk in the bar, late at night, all alone blues number. It's nice, but it really sticks out like a sore thumb in some ways because it doesn't fit the rest of the feel of this album, and it doesn't feel like it belongs here. It's just out of place. It's as far as blues songs go, it's nice. It's just your typical blues tropes. There's nothing, no new ground broken or nothing particularly exciting. It's pretty straightforward kind of blues songs that you've heard a billion of in your life. It's a nice song is about all I can say. I give Down in the Hole a 6. Jagger does pretty good vocal on it, I'll give it that. But 6 for Down in the Hole. Third song is the title track, Emotional Rescue, which was released as a single, lead single off the album. It got number 3 in America and number 9 in the UK. It's no Miss You, but it's a hell of a lot better than Hot Stuff off Black and Blue. It's a good song. I think it's a little too long. It might have been helped if it was a minute or so chopped off of it, but the bass, the sax, the beat, the percussion is really cool. I have great memories of this song because back in the summer of '80 there was a really cute girl that I was very smitten with, head over heels. She unfortunately didn't feel the same way, but I do remember being over at her place, swimming pool in the backyard, and her and some of her girlfriends from work were dancing around and singing this song, and that's a wonderful memory that'll always stick in my head. So I talked about song snippets in the Some Girls video, those little 1 to 10 second parts of songs that you always look forward to, that always get you, I guess in life you've got those moments of life snippets, things that you'll always remember. But anyway, so that elevated the song in my mind, just seeing the cute girls dancing and singing around to it back in the day. And of course, her kids now are older than her or I were back in then. Funny how life goes like that. But yeah, and just my friends and I, we kind of had fun with the song. The hoo 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 hoo, and the I'll be your knight in shining armor, and riding around on a fine Arab charger and all that. The Jagger spoken word parts were fun, but for all that, it's not the classic that Miss You is. But I like it. It's a fun song. It's a little bit too long, like I said. I'm gonna give it an 8.5 for Emotional Rescue. It's almost a classic, but just not quite. The next song is She's So Cold. This is the, I guess, sort of classic Stones cut of the album, though it's sort of classic Stones light, Lite, because it's not, this isn't Tumbling Dice or Bitch or Jumpin' Jack Flash or anything like that by any means, but it's fun. It's just a lot of fun. The 16-year-old me probably would have given this a 10, but the old boring version of me, I'm gonna give it an 8. It's all right. It's she's a sweet bougie. I always like that part. Another song snippet there. Yeah, it's a pretty good one. It's they had done a lot better in the past, but it's for the classic Stones rocker of the album. It's a pretty good one. I'll give it an 8. The album ends on sort of a downbeat note, but also what I think is the best song of the album, which is the Keith song, which, as I've said over and over, I always look forward to Keith's contribution to a Stones album because they're always good. So here we've got All About You, which is just insistent, laid-back, confessional blues type ballad, sort of slow, sort of mid-paced at times. He might be singing about Anita Pallenberg, who he just recently separated from before he moved on to Patty Hansen, and she and him would get married, and they'd have a couple of kids named, what are the kids' names? Theodosa and Ironing Board or whatever. I don't know. But anyway, might be about Anita, might be about Mick, because in the early 80s, into the early to mid 80s, Mick and Keith kind of had their ups and downs and troubles. So might be a little bit about that. This is Keith and Charlie and Ronnie on the track, and then there's some people playing saxophone and stuff, some other people, but I don't think Bill or Mick, either one, are on this. Lovely vocals from Keith on this. It's really good. Keith's songs are Keith always seems more genuine than Mick to me, and so his songs always come off more soulful and more heartfelt, more believable, and sort of from the heart. I love the end of this song because you get this great gut punch that whoever he's singing to, whether he's singing to Mick or Anita or both of them or someone else, he trashes that person 20 Ways to Sunday all throughout the song. And then at the end you get this gut punch of how come I'm still in love with you, and that's just a great ending to the song. It reminds me of Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, Hunter Thompson, the great book by Hunter Thompson, and how in the middle of all the crazy mayhem and wackiness and funny stuff and shenanigans and drug taking and just chicanery going on, you've got that line about, and I haven't read the book for a long time, so I'm not going to quote this exactly, but how he's talking about the dream of the 60s and how you can look out towards the horizon on the desert and you can see where the wave built, and if you look hard enough you can see where it broke and receded back, and so that's, to me, was always sort of the point of that book. Just that in the middle of all that stuff in the book, you get that gut punch of people believing in a dream, and we've all been through that, I think, in life, and then everything just going perfect, and then out of nowhere it just falls apart, and you can look back on it and sort of see where it went wrong after the fact. But anyway, you kind of get that because he certainly did have his ups and downs with Anita. Keith did, if that's who he's singing to, and certainly had his ups and downs with Jagger over the years. But just a really affecting and poignant, heartfelt song, All About You. I'm going to give that one a 10. Overall, I'm going to give this album a 7.5. And like I said, I've come to like it more. I'll pull this out and play it. Not a whole lot, but here and there I'll pull it out and play it, and I always enjoy it when I do. So it's a fun album. It's not quite a classic, but it's pretty damn good.